Welcome to part 3. We're excited you're here to continue the conversation with us. Let's dive right in and pick up where we left off.
How does AI play into that? I know that you've been part in the AI Plus Munich program as well. What's the AI component within that area?
So you need to imagine the first thing is when you want to understand a battery, you need a lots of battery data. And in the best case, it's not statistical data, but measured data. So like real numbers coming from the individual battery cell. And that's exactly what we're doing. So we are in the first place generating battery data, like really on the individual vehicle base. This data is then sent to the cloud and not stored locally because that makes no sense really. And whenever we get battery data, then it's in the first place a big bunch of data with no clear patterns. And that's where AI applies, because to find patterns and to generate learnings from the battery data you have, and the more you have, the better it is. We are using certain algorithms to evaluate on the data and see what are the patterns for this specific battery chemistry, for this specific battery format. Meaning that we evaluate the data and the results we are then using in a kind of a lookup table that is then sent back to the individual vehicle on a regular basis, so that you have an ongoing update on your vehicle, kind of like Tesla is doing it, that makes sure that you're always running in the best possible state for your specific vehicle and your specific application. And that's where the AI component comes into the game, which is probably in the future our core USP and also core know-how on how to frame the algorithms that are then getting the best results from the data you have.
That's really interesting. Coming back to the startup founder journey, to the entrepreneurship, away from all these technical details, which are highly appreciated. Actually, it's really great insights. I've learned a lot that I didn't know about EVs. Thank you for that. I've learned that you've been part of the Start Summit 2004 and the road to that. What influence did that have on your entrepreneurial journey?
The Start community was introduced by a working student to us, Rafael Joppi. Shout out to him. He was part of the initiative, and as they are really connected to each other, he also introduced us to them, and we figured out quite fast that for the fact that it is a students' initiative, they're extremely professional, and they have a lot of motivated people and members. And of course, lots of competitions for startups. And we've been, I think, in 2023, the first time participants in the summit in St. Gallen. And the next year, they asked us if we are not interested in applying for the Road to Start Summit. And then, if we are lucky, even being part of the finals at the Start Summit. So as the first experience was really great, because whoever has the chance to visit Start Summit in St. Gallen, I can really recommend it. I would say it's one of the most high quality startup events we have in Europe. I would go that far. For founders, for people who are interested in founding a company, and of course to meet from a startup perspective investors and get in touch with them. So last year, 2024, we applied for the Road to Start Summit. We've been the winning team over here in Munich for that reason, being then part of the semifinals. Also made it through the semifinals, and then even made it to the last four or five, were the finals on the big stage on the Start Summit, and made it to the second place then.
Congratulations on that. I've read that.
Yeah, thanks a lot. It was a really awesome experience. The overall context, being on this huge stage, and all the lightning show, and simply the professional setup they provided. So that was really cool. We really enjoyed it. And this is also something that is important for a startup to get attention in a way of the general word media, But especially, or depending in which context you are operating, on LinkedIn, in like all the startup media platforms that are existing. So that really helps a lot to place your name at the side of the relevant players and like to make yourself and startup known in the startup world, because you likely will not have a huge budget for PR and marketing and acquiring or paying for certain articles. And whenever you have the chance to be there,
time.
it's good. And time.
Right,
Exactly.
because it's the thing of prioritization.
Yes.
Because doing PR and doing marketing at a POC stage or an MVP stage is just, everyone would love to do it, but you've got to develop a product.
Yep. Definitely.
Nice. Thank you for the insights on Startup Summit. So our potential founders now know that this is also important to do the media work, but select the really good programs that are out there. Coming back to your founder's journey, you have a diverse background. We already talked about that. You've been operating in high stakes environments a lot. Like banking is also a high stake environment, but of course military and developing this EV battery startup. If you could summarize for the listeners maybe something that you've learned about yourself from that journey, what would that be?
Trust people. That's a third very important point. We could even place at the very beginning of the podcast.
Yeah, exactly.
The army, and especially in the banking context. Really trust people, because you just said it, you need to focus. And you are never able to dedicate your time to every task that is upcoming. So at a certain point, when you have like employees, when you have co-founders, of course, you need to trust people that they are doing the work that needs to be done as good as you would do it, or in the best case, are even better in doing it, because that's why you hired them. So trusting in people means that you can focus on the core tasks that are on your table, and also means that you are faster than if you would work alone. Because whenever you trust the people that they're doing their job, whenever they get the task, then you can purely focus on what's your core task at the moment. And that makes the overall organization, if everyone trusts each other, then you can simply sleep well while knowing that everyone works into the same direction. And that is extremely important, especially when you outgrow the stage of only being the founder's team and have your first employees, because it's impossible for you to control and check every task you have distributed, and even creates a strange atmosphere for the employees if you're always checking on them. That means that you don't trust them. So trust the people, like be sure that they are even better than you would be in the job they're doing, and then you will be definitely successful, because everyone can focus on his specific task.
I would love to learn from your perspective what trust, the word, what it means to you. What is trust from your perspective?
On one side, a very calming context, because that means that you can rely on the people and that you don't always stay awake 24 hours thinking of everything and also covering everything. So it is a safety fact for me when I trust the process, and also trusting the people that makes me feel safe, kind of. And also a success factor, really. Because when you are sure that you have the right people at the right place, then you've done everything to make the company successful at this certain point. Also, like paying into the point of safety, because when you are sure and when you feel safe that you've done everything that is possible to be successful, then the likelihood and your trust in being successful is definitely increased, and you were feeling better.
Would you say trust is earned or given?
I would say given. At the beginning, it's always given, and the person can then prove that it was given at the right point, and that's it.
So giving trust is a key part of your life as a chief operating officers. What are areas that you work in, or what are key activities that you do as within your position within Pulstrain?
The COO position is, I would say, the least defined position you could potentially have on the C-level landscape, because it can mean everything and nothing. In our specific context, for me, or my role includes anything that is not development and that is not connected to strategy and sales. So I'm currently taking care of everything that includes marketing activities, everything that includes financial operations. So less the finance side, more really the operational finance, planning and also execution. It also means HR as a responsibility, and it especially means project management of the ongoing projects. So these are the 4 tasks in our context I'm responsible for. Also meaning that it's a very diverse field, because I would say HR is quite far from project management. On the other side, providing you a very agile and a very interesting day-to-day business, because basically every day you have the chance and sometimes also the obligation to deal with different tasks from even different departments, making it quite exciting on a daily basis.
I can imagine. Has your role changed over the time? Like we've just cut it a little bit, but you've been CEO of Bavertis, right? And then now Chief Operating Officer of Pulstrain, and it's different phases of startups within that journey. Like one was like a small start, and it evolved and it changed. We've heard the story. How did your leadership and how did your role change over the time?
I would say in the stage where we are still, we're now a bit more than 40 people. I would say in this stage, all members of the founding team, pretty much independent from the title they're getting, you're still working together quite closely, and you're even working together cross departments. So you're always pretty much involved in all of the activities ongoing, or at least informed. The job as a founder in this stage is still lots of day-to-day business. So you still have a very close connection to basically every department, and also to all of the external stakeholders. So the major difference from Bavertis to Pulstrain, I would say, is that I'm less in the position of really executing the tasks, but rather in the position of defining the tasks and the timelines and the prioritization of what needs to be done at a certain point to then really fit in the overall picture of the development department, the strategy, the sales team. So that is, I would say, the major difference. Less execution, more planning.
That's interesting. What do you like more from a personal level? Both have their advantages and their disadvantages. If you could choose, like you're now in that role, you grew into it, you cannot change it. But if you could choose,
I would say execution, because you can see and feel the results immediately.
I feel that. I totally understand that. That's true. Like implementation has something extraordinary, because things that have been into the mind become reality somehow.
Yes.
And that feels so good. Like if you draw something on a piece of paper, and then, for example, from software development perspective, and you turn it into a wireframe, and then like the actual code on your screen creates the thing that you imagined, and it's there, like it's a
Exactly
fine moment.
It's satisfying.
Yeah,
Okay.
but startups need everything. Startups need, startups demand your role, and of course, like this changes over the time, and it's good like that. What's the biggest learnings in a complex environment like that for you?
You always need to be aware of the stakeholders internally and externally, and you always need to build bridges between the different knowledge bases, especially when in our context we have software and hardware, two very different worlds of how stuff is developed and how stuff is implemented, also in terms of speed. And it is very important to always have an overview of who are the stakeholders and who is the critical stakeholder at the specific moment, and then being able to kind of orchestrate all those stakeholders that the overall picture or the overall goal is still reached, and that you're not maybe going left or right, and then in the worst case really missing the goal, but always building bridges between those different stakeholders and also understanding the different demands and the different ways of how they are operating to really make this possible.
Beyond automotive, where does Pulstrain want to go? What are areas for the future? What's the vision for the company?
So the vision for the company is to really be active in the broad field of mobility, starting from the micromobility and ending in the aviation area. So when we have in the future really electrified aviation, this is the overall goal. And for us, the big vision is to really be the provider, or at least the baseline of the battery managements that are enabling the electrification and the overall electrification of mobility. That's what we are aiming for.
Wow, I can see that coming. Like, we need to electrify the industry.
Yeah.
In general.
Exactly.
One of my best friends is a chemistry PhD, and he's working also with the electrification within chemistry. It has many benefits, and I think many people see why we want to leave the fossil world into an electrified world, and so you're contributing to that. Thank you for that. What advice would you give potential founders that don't have a technical background? Like, I've now noticed that you actually have a deep technical background, way much more than I would ever have in my life. But still, like, you come from banking and from the military. So could you give some insight for founders that don't have a technical degree on tips on creating or becoming an entrepreneur?
Seriously, network during your university time, cross borders and cross subjects. Because my experience was, I studied management. I almost only knew management people because they're always hanging together. And like the engineers are hanging together, the physics guys are hanging together. So really take every possible opportunity to network with people who are not in your field of expertise. And university is probably the easiest way to do so, like over initiatives, over parties, over simply subjects you could use or you could like do as a module that are cross subject. So really start networking and build this network during your studies proactively, and never wait until the network comes to you, because either you're building it or nothing happens.
Speaking of the past, what would be something that you would advise your younger self based on the experience you have now?
Definitely the thing I just said, really build your network across subjects, and also be as active as possible during your studies beyond your actual studies, because studying in Germany and likely also all over Europe is very theory based. Like, you're sitting a lot in the rooms and just studying, but really try to gain as much as possible practical experience. And I'm really speaking about basic stuff like writing professional emails, doing public talks, doing like projects that include more than one person in group activities, and present the results, because that is what displays your future work environment, because you will likely never sit in a room alone or even with a few people only reading text and then writing an exam. It's always about interconnecting and working with people, and the more you learn and integrate this already in your studies, the more successful you will likely be in your future career.
That's strong words. I think empathy, social skills, learning how to communicate, all that kind of stuff isn't been taught by an exam in a room. That's true. Pulstrain is a deep tech company, right? And deep tech company has a business success as a goal. Are there other goals that are not business success?
Yes, definitely. When we come kind of back to the vision, then like really having this impact on enabling a new way of how the industry, like the overall industry, not only mobility, is working. That is definitely one of the like side effects we really on purpose want to create. And on the other side, then being part of this new definition of how an industry, also how a society is moving, because at least in my opinion, mobility is one of the core demands a human being has. Like we started on foot and now we're even flying through the sky. So this is simply a demand a person and society has, because that's how you make connections, how you get to know people, how you also experience and learn as an individual, and really being a part of transforming this basic need into a more sustainable way of how this is implemented and how this is happening in the world. And with this also maybe defining a new start of how the mobility industry in general is working. That is a side effect we are trying to contribute to. We're also happily contributing to, because that gives our work, or at least in my opinion, this gives our work also the needed purpose why people are motivated to do so.
And based on that, imagine us being 85 now, right? So far into the future. How would you like your work and also Pulstrain to be remembered or viewed from looking from the future to the now?
In the best case, I would say, if we would sit at this time together again, I would like to be convinced that we gave back to the German and European automotive industry what they once had. And this is like an innovative mindset that really shaped a whole industry over the world. So if we can create this again and get this mindset back, that from Germany over Europe to the world, innovation for mobility is back, I would be super happy.
Me too. Like, this is a really, really strong vision that you have right there. So we're almost at the end of the podcast right now. We've covered very interesting topics and I've gained a lot of interesting insights. I really hope that for the listeners and viewers, the insights were as interesting as for me and they learned a lot. As last segment, we most of the times have a segment called Rapid Fire. It's like quick questions, quick answers. Would you be up for something like that?
Absolutely.
All right, then let's do it. The most important person in your life?
My spouse.
A book that deeply influenced your approach on life?
Harry Potter.
One piece of software that you can't live without?
Planning tools.
What kind of planning tools?
Outlook calendar.
What's your favorite way to unwind after a long day?
Running.
If you could solve one global sustainability challenge with unlimited resources, what would it be?
Decarbonizing the industry.
If you had to describe Pulstrain within 3 words, what would it be?
Innovation, teamwork, and vision.
Nice. Thanks for that answers. This was a really nice conversation. I hope, as we said, many people learned a lot. There were very different topics that we talked about a PE transfer from universities, about really like a strong technical approach or a deep technical approach, at least from my perspective, and about the entrepreneurship journey. It was a pleasure having you here, and hopefully we see soon updating us each other on the transformation of the automotive industry. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot for having me.
Nice.
Nice.
Super. Danke dir.
Cool.